A brave gnome with the keenest eye, a loyal shrub with the sharpest wit, and a merry tune carried on the wind. Milo and Gooseberry blazed the trails again. Milo Pierce, accompanied by his trusty awakened shrub companion, Gooseberry, the clever and daring trailblazer who leads the way for discovery and adventure in the uncharted wilderness. Return with us now to those thrilling journeys of yore. Milo and Gooseberry ride the trails once more.
The forest brimmed with life as Milo Pierce, trailblazer of Pygmy Village, knelt to inspect a patch of disturbed earth. The clever forest gnome whistled a merry little tune, teaching it to a nearby sparrow perched on a branch above him. "Now don't forget the second part, little one," Milo said with a wink. "Keep it in pitch, and you'll lead any traveler right to safety." It was a sweet, lilting tune that anybody from Milo's village would instantly recognize. The sparrow chirped back a clumsy imitation, and Milo chuckled. But a sudden noise in the distance startled them, and the bird took flight. Milo froze, his keen eyes darting across the undergrowth. The usual chorus of insects and birds was gone, replaced by the frantic scurry of critters fleeing deeper into the forest. "Something's wrong," Milo muttered, his cheerful demeanor hardening. "Look at these tracks. They're scattered, panicked." Gooseberry's leaves trembled as he spoke. "The forest is uneasy. Whatever's ahead has disturbed its balance." Milo nodded, drawing his short sword and adjusting his pack. "Well then, let's go see what's got everyone so spooked." The pair pressed onward, leaving behind the safety of familiar trails. As they ventured farther into uncharted territory, the forest's vibrancy began to fade. The trees were fewer, their leaves duller. Milo's nose twitched as he caught the faint scent of smoke in the air. When they emerged from the thinning trees, Milo stopped in his tracks, his stomach sinking at the sight before him. The once towering edge of the forest had been reduced to a barren field of stumps. Smoke rose from cooking fires, and makeshift wooden cabins dotted the landscape. Men and women worked in teams, felling trees with heavy axes and hauling logs to wagons. The rhythmic crack of splitting wood filled the air, and the camp buzzed with activity. Gooseberry's branches drooped as he surveyed the scene. "The forest bleeds here." Milo's eyes narrowed. "Some kind of logging camp. They're cutting the forest clear all around." The workers were a mixed crowd: humans, half-orcs, half-elves, and a few others that Milo didn't immediately recognize. His gaze lingered on a group of tieflings, their curling horns and crimson skin standing out against the drab browns and greens of the camp. "What do you make of those horned ones?" Milo asked. Gooseberry shook his branches. "Tieflings. They're no strangers to hardship. And neither are these workers." Milo's sharp eyes caught a glimpse of one man exchanging slips of paper at a small building marked commissary. A weary half-elf emerged moments later, clutching a sack of meager supplies. He stuffed a crumpled note into his pocket before trudging back toward the cabins. "Scrip," Gooseberry observed. "They get paid in fake money that only has value at the company store." "Sounds like a recipe for trouble to me," Milo muttered. His gaze shifted to the foreman, a stout gray-haired man with weathered skin and a wide-brimmed hat, barking orders from the porch of a larger cabin. Workers scrambled under his commands, their faces lined with exhaustion. Milo's cheerful expression was gone. "Who's in charge here?" "Not the foreman," Gooseberry replied. "Whoever owns this operation, they're not here. But their shadow looms over everything." Milo glanced around, taking in the grim faces of the workers and the guards patrolling the perimeter. "Let's find out more before we start stirring the pot." The pair moved cautiously, staying out of sight as they circled the camp. Milo's ears perked at the sound of hushed voices near a stack of logs. A wiry half-orc was muttering to his companion, glancing nervously at the guards. "This script's worthless," the half-orc said. "We work ourselves to the bone, and it all goes back to Houndstooth." Milo crept closer, his steps silent on the soft earth. "What's this about Houndstooth?" The half-orc flinched, but Milo held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "Easy, friend. I'm just a traveler. Name's Milo, and I've got a feeling we're not fans of the same guy." The half-orc eyed him warily, then sighed. "If you've got any sense, you'll stay out of this, gnome. Hugo Houndstooth owns this camp, the town, and everyone in it." Milo tilted his head. "And how's that working out for you?" The worker scowled. "He's got us in debt. We work for scrip, spend it all on commissary, and never get ahead. Anyone who steps out of line, and the guards." His voice trailed off. "The guards do what?" Milo pressed. The half-orc's eyes darted toward a distant cabin, its windows boarded up. You don't want to know. A sharp whistle pierced the air, and the half-orc hurried back to work, leaving Milo and Gooseberry alone in the shadow of the camp. What now? Gooseberry asked. Milo's jaw tightened. Something's not right here, and it sounds like this houndstooth owns more than just these folks. We need to dig deeper. The camp fell quiet as night settled over the frontier, save for the distant rustle of wind through the severed forest and the occasional snap of a fire. Milo and Gooseberry had spent the day learning the rhythm of the camp, who the workers were, where the guards patrolled, and the locations of key buildings like the commissary and the foreman's cabin. Now, cloaked in shadows, the duo crept through the heart of the camp. Milo paused behind a stack of freshly cut logs, his sharp eyes scanning for movement. The guards were sparse, and their lazy patrols gave him plenty of gaps to slip through. Gooseberry followed silently, his wooden frame blending seamlessly into the surroundings. Foreman's cabin first, Milo whispered. If anyone has answers, it's him. The pair approached the foreman's cabin, a structure larger and sturdier than the rest. A dim lantern burned inside, casting flickering shadows across the windows. Milo crouched below the porch and pressed his ear to the wall, catching snippets of a one-sided conversation. Shipments late again, the foreman grumbled, his voice thick with frustration. If Houndstooth thinks I can run this place without tools or supplies, he's got another thing coming. Milo raised an eyebrow. Sounds like trouble in paradise, he thought. He glanced at Gooseberry, who gave a small nod, then slipped under the cabin through a gap in the foundation. Milo followed, pulling himself into the cramped crawl space. Through the floorboards, they could see the foreman pacing back and forth, muttering to himself. Damn workers grumbling about scrip again, the foreman continued. If they don't like it, they can take it up with Houndstooth. See how far they get without his protection. Milo's lips tightened. Sounds like this Houndstooth fellow isn't winning any popularity contests. The foreman's pacing stopped, and Milo heard the creak of a drawer opening. The man pulled out a thick ledger and sat heavily at his desk, flipping through pages. Milo strained to read the upside-down writing through the gaps in the floorboards. The ledger was filled with rows of numbers and names, each marked with deductions, food, tools, housing, all taken from the workers' wages. Shady bookkeeping, Gooseberry muttered softly. This town bleeds them dry. And the guards make sure no one fights back, Milo whispered. Let's keep moving. They slipped out from under the cabin and made their way toward the commissary. The building stood at the center of the camp, its front window displaying sparse shelves of supplies, bags of grain, tin lanterns, and crude tools. Milo picked the lock with practiced ease, and the two slipped inside. The air was thick with the musty scent of old wood and stale tobacco. Behind the counter, they found stacks of scrip, neatly bundled and stamped with the insignia of Hugo Houndstooth. A stylized white feather with the motto, Excelsior, printed below it. Milo pocketed one of the notes for later. What are they really worth? Gooseberry asked, tilting his leafy head toward the bundles. Not much outside this camp, Milo replied. Keeps the workers trapped here. They can't save, can't leave. All they can do is spend it here and go back to work. Gooseberry sighed, his branches drooping. A rigged system. Milo moved to a small locked cabinet behind the counter and worked it open. Inside, he found a set of ledgers matching the one in the foreman's cabin, along with a bundle of letters. He pulled out the top letter and read silently, his brow furrowing deeper with each line. It's from Houndstooth, Milo muttered. He's got contracts with buyers all over the region, and they're paying top coin for this lumber. Meanwhile, the workers are starving. Gooseberry leaned closer. Anything about the guards? Milo shuffled through the letters, stopping at one stamped with a red seal. Here we go, he said, holding it up. Houndstooth's instructing the guards to keep morale high by any means necessary. Sounds like code for cracking skulls. He folded the letter and slipped it into his pack. This is bigger than just a logging camp, Milo said grimly. Houndstooth's running a racket, and these workers are paying the price. The sound of heavy boots on the wooden porch sent Milo and Gooseberry darting for cover. A guard stepped into the commissary, his lantern sweeping the room. Milo crouched behind a barrel, his heart pounding as the light passed over him. You smell that? The guard muttered, his voice gruff. Damn forest always reeks like wet dirt. Gooseberry tensed beside Milo, his branches curling in silent readiness. The guard moved deeper into the room, his back to the duo. Milo slipped his short sword from its sheath, ready to act if necessary. But the guard turned back toward the door, shaking his head. Must be imagining things, he grumbled, stepping outside and closing the door behind him. Milo exhaled slowly, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. Close call, he whispered. We can't stay much longer, Gooseberry replied. The forest needs us. Milo nodded. One more stop. Let's see what's behind that boarded-up cabin. The cabin stood on the edge of the camp, its windows and doors reinforced with thick planks of wood. The workers avoided it, glancing nervously as they passed. Milo and Gooseberry approached cautiously, their footsteps muffled by the soft dirt. Milo ran his hand along the boards, searching for a weak point. Whatever's in here, it's what the workers are afraid of. Gooseberry placed a leafy hand on Milo's shoulder. Be careful. Fear grows in dark places. With a quick flick of his blade, Milo pried loose a plank and slipped inside. The cabin was dimly lit, the air thick with the acrid smell of old blood. Chains hung from the walls, and the floor was stained with dark streaks. Milo's stomach turned. This isn't just a logging camp, he said, his voice low. It's a prison. Gooseberry's leaves trembled. For the ones who fight back. A faint noise caught Milo's ear, a muffled groan from the far corner of the room. He moved toward it, finding a young half-orc man shackled to the wall, his face bruised and his clothes torn. Easy, friend, Milo said softly, pulling a lockpick from his pouch. We're getting you out of here. The half-orc's eyes fluttered open, his voice weak. They'll kill us all, if we don't fight back. Milo's jaw tightened as he worked the lock. Then it's time to start fighting. Murmurs began to spread in the night as Milo and Gooseberry returned to the workers' cabins under the cover of darkness. The rescued half-orc, his wounds hastily bound, limped alongside them. His name was Cedric, Smilin' Sid, Grimhorn, and despite the pain etched across his face, his lips curved into a faint grin as he saw the workers gathered in the shadows. Milo stepped forward, his voice low but firm. Everyone listen. I know you're afraid. I know you think there's no way out of this place. But Cedric's alive, and he's here to remind you that there's strength in unity. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Cedric raised a shaky hand. They thought they could break me, he said, his voice hoarse but steady. But I'm here, standing up for myself. And so can you. The workers exchanged glances, their fear giving way to murmurs of determination. A tiefling woman with a scar across her cheek stepped forward, fists clenched. We've tried before, Cedric. We've fought, and we've lost. Cedric met her gaze. Because we weren't together. They picked us off, one by one. But look around you. He gestured at the crowd. There are more of us than them. We've got hands to swing hammers and axes. And we've got the spirit of this forest backing us. If we stand as one, no one can stop us. A ripple of hope spread through the gathered workers. Milo stepped beside Cedric. You've been fighting for scraps while Houndstooth lives large off your sweat. He's bled this camp dry. But you've got the power to take it back. Gooseberry's branches rustled as he added, the forest bleeds with you, but it can also heal with you. The workers began nodding, muttering agreements to one another. One by one, they picked up tools and stepped forward, forming a mob. With Cedric at their head, they marched toward the foreman's cabin, torches lighting the darkened camp. The foreman, startled by the commotion, burst onto the porch. What in the nine hells is going on? He barked, staring at the advancing crowd. His eyes darted to the guards, who stood warily at the edges of the camp. They're rebelling, you fools, he shouted at the guards. I'll pay you double your wages to put them down. Crush them. One of the guards, a burly human, stepped forward. Double our wages, huh? What's that mean, foreman? More of this worthless scrip. The foreman hesitated. It spins just fine at the commissary. The guard's laugh was harsh. Yeah, where you gouge us for everything we need. We're just as trapped as they are. Another guard, a grizzled dwarf, slammed his weapon into the ground. He's right. I've had enough of this dung heap. The guards exchanged looks, and one by one, they lowered their weapons and joined the workers. The foreman paled, backing into his cabin as the mob surged forward. Cedric pushed to the front, his grin as sharp as a blade. Time's up, foreman. The workers dragged the foreman out and stripped him of his authority. They beat him senseless and locked him in the same shack where rebellious workers had once been imprisoned. Milo, standing at the center of the camp, watched as supplies from the commissary were redistributed and workers embraced one another in celebration. Cedric approached him, his hand outstretched. We couldn't have done this without you, Milo. Milo shook his hand. This was your fight. I just gave you a nudge. As dawn broke over the camp, the workers gathered to discuss their future. Cedric stood at the center, addressing them with his characteristic grin. No more scrip, no more foreman. From now on, This camp belongs to us. We'll work together, share the profits, and build something worth calling a home." The workers cheered, their voices echoing through the forest. Gooseberry's branches swayed in approval, and Milo felt a flicker of pride at what they had accomplished. As the camp began to transform, with workers planting trees and repairing cabins, Milo and Gooseberry prepared to leave. Cedric met them at the edge of the camp, his grin still firmly in place. "You're always welcome here, friend. We workers remember our allies." Milo nodded. "Take care of it, Cedric." As they walked back into the forest, Gooseberry glanced at Milo. "You seem troubled." Milo sighed. "They're still going to be cutting down these trees. It feels like we only fixed part of the problem." Gooseberry's leaves rustled thoughtfully. "Perhaps Kuomo-sabi, but at least they'll stop cutting down people too."
And so, Milo Pierce and his loyal shrub companion Gooseberry ride off once more, blazing trails and forging friendships across the uncharted wilderness. Until next time, keep your wits sharp, your mind open, and your heart true, and you just might hear the Scout's tune carried on the wind.